We've started a fourth Monday speaker series called, it's in general, The Nature of Rappahannock, for us to all learn more about the details of the critters and plants and the ecology that we're very privileged to live in. I've got a few more things to say, but again, thanks to John Beardsley and Bruce Jones for instigating it. Thanks to the Public Library for giving us this wonderful space and partnering. Thank you to the Rappahannock League for Environmental Protection. Thank you to Max, but I'll say more about that in a minute. Most importantly, thank you, Zoomers, and thank you, people that are here in the room, for caring about these issues so much. We really, truly do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Oh, and thank you to my technical crew who did such a wonderful job setting everything up. Excellent. But first, let me introduce Amanda Wheatley, our much loved county librarian.
Thank you. All right, I just want to say hello, and I want to welcome you all to your Rappahannock County Library. I too have a long list of thank yous to Mike, Maxwell, our LEP, our tech people over there, thank you. And to John and Bruce as well. We very much appreciate all the coordination and group effort that this is, and thank you all so much for being here. Since Mike started this way, if you don't have a library card, shame on you, you need to get one. But the library cards are free. And the library is open until 8 tonight. So if you guys have some time, do venture in to the library, get a library card, take a look at our collection. We try to have something for everyone. If we don't, let us know. We're happy to try to get things to help meet your needs and information and programming. We do have some diverse library programming here. We have educational programs, wellness programs such as Tai Chi. We have art programs. You'll notice there's some paint here and there on the floor. That's from our art programs, which are a lot of fun. And the mess is okay. And you can do it here instead of at home. And all materials are provided. And our most popular art program is probably our seniors paint at the library. And yes, some examples of that work you'll see in this room and throughout the library. And that program is supported by RAC Arts, Claudia Mitchell Arts Fund grants. We're very grateful to them. And we're grateful to you all for being here. And like I said, just reach out if there's any way we can help you at the library. And enjoy tonight's talk.
Thank you. On that line, by the way, you can see some examples of the seniors' paintings up here. Guess which group Max really bonded with. 15 years we won. The turtles, of course, the turtles. Here. Housekeeping, Zoomers. This is Mike. I will be monitoring the chat, and so I'll make sure and record your questions as we go through, and we'll try to get back to them. We'll have a Q&A section at the end. Hopefully we'll be able to get to most of them. We are recording this session. We hope it becomes a library of resources for the community and the schools to be able to continue to use, because we have not only a wonderful ecology here and a great community, we're also very lucky to have the Smithsonian National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute just up the road over Chester Gap. It houses some fabulous scientists, and we're very lucky to have one of them with us tonight. You did bring him along.
It's not there.
Max is he's the turtle guy. He's the turtle expert, and you all had a chance to read his bio. So I won't spend any more time, since we spent so much time getting our technology worked out. I'll just turn it over to Max and let him wow you with his knowledge about turtles and how cool turtles are. Max, thank you.
The intro. Hopefully you guys actually enjoy the turtles. They are, they're some of my favorites. So I'm Maxwell Earle. I'm the Outreach Engagement Coordinator and a researcher for the Smithsonian's Turtle Conservation Ecology Lab. We're a program based, like Mike said, in Front Royal, and we've been based out there for a little over 10 years, focused on primarily working on turtles studying turtles in the Northern Virginia region, just along the East Coast. So if we can hit the next slide when you're ready. So the general agenda for this talk, I'm going to give a brief introduction to myself and, the overview of this talk. So what we're doing literally right now. The plight of turtles, a few other housekeeping notes, and then we're going to hop right into the life history of turtles, the plight of turtles, and then our research to help conserve turtles. Also, look at this beautiful illustration by B.W. Wells, Nick Garnhart. I just want to put that plug right there. Wonderful stuff. But we can do the next slide. So, the plight of turtles. This is the first bit. We're going to jump into a little bit more, later throughout the, talk. But if you look on the, this is on y'all's left-hand side, you see a bunch of tortoises kind of grouped together. Turtles are some of the most trafficked animals in the world, especially, in the foreign exchange and foreign trade for the pet market. They get taken off the landscape in hundreds, thousands, if not, over the course of time, millions. These are a bunch of radiated tortoises from Madagascar. I believe they were seized by the Turtle Survival Alliance and some colleagues. So they were hopefully going to be reintroduced back in the wild. One of the other things that is causing the plight of turtles is machine-related mortality. On the right-hand side, you'll see a turtle that is missing part of its vital turtle bits at the very top. It was hit by an actual a disc vine mower. So kind of giving you all a little bit of a shock of what is hurting turtles around the world. So equipment and human trafficking for the most part. But we can skip to the next slide. Jump. So a little bit about me. I've been a bit of a reptile person for most of my life. On the left-hand side, that's me dressed as Turtwig. It's a Pokemon. It's a wooden turtle Pokemon, which is very fitting for me. In the middle, I'm dressed as a dinosaur, and there's me in Costa Rica catching lizards. I grew up in South Florida, so I grew up in an area with a lot of biodiversity, a lot of reptiles, a lot of amphibians, a lot of cool stuff. So that kind of laid the framework for me to kind of build that into my career. My grandmother also had a degree in zoology, so she kind of pushed me towards that a little bit. So you guys can have some more personal questions, that stuff after the talk, but that's a little bit of the context of where I'm coming from. I'm going to go to the next slide. My actual educational background is I have a bachelor's degree in environmental science or environmental studies and conservation from George Mason University, and I did a full semester out of the Smithsonian. We have a Smithsonian Mason School of Conservation program where we're out there for it's a full semester, and you do a research placement with a program or a different lab, either at the Smithsonian or nearby the Smithsonian. So Clifton Institute's another nonprofit that you can do them with. But I did mine with, if you can guess, the Turtle Lab, and that was when I realized I could do this for a living. And then I kept bothering them. I was like, I really, really like what I'm doing here. And after my placement, I was like, can I volunteer? They're like, all right, I guess. We'll let them keep coming. And then I kept bugging them. I was like, all right, now that I'm volunteered, you guys an internship? And then they were finally like, all right, give me an internship. And then I stayed. That was so persistence does that. Next. So raise your hand here if you know what a turtle is. I should see almost everything. Looking at you. Okay, good. So what is a turtle? There are some things that kind of we can use to bin or categorize turtles versus what is not a turtle. So we have the next slide. Sorry. So a turtle is a poikilothermic tetrapodic ectotherm. That's not something you hear people talk about in everyday conversation. We'll just jump through each of these definitions just to give you a bit more context of what a turtle really is. Poikilotherm is an animal that has a lot of variation in its internal temperature. It can withstand that. So it can go almost down to freezing, all the way up to really hot in the 90s, 100s. So animals that have that huge variation, fluctuation in temperature. Tetrapod, anything that's in that lineage that includes mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians. So vertebrate having animals that are descended from creatures with 4 legs. Ectotherm is an animal that has to externally regulate its body heat. It doesn't do it like we do, where we eat food, we metabolize food, we get energy, and we also get a heat. Turtles don't do that. They have to bask, or they just have to get lucky with good weather. So when it's cold, they're cold, but they just function slowly. If it's going to be a turtle, it's got to be a reptile. I think at least. So reptiles are anything with, it's going to be a herpetofauna, which is going to have scales. It's going to, be cold-blooded or an ectotherm. It's going to have 4 limbs, and then it's going to have a bony shell. All turtles have a bony shell. It's actually made from fusing their ribs to their spine. We can actually skip to the next slide. I'll give a better explanation, but it's really, really strange. So when you look inside of a turtle, it is its shell. The turtle doesn't come out of its shell ever. Hopefully not, ideally. But it's actually, again, it's a fusion of ribs up to the spine, and it's actually pulling its pelvic and shoulder girdles inside. So imagine all your ribs fused together. You have to put your shoulders inside your, inside your collarbone. You had to walk around like kind of a cowboy with that little hip sway. It's an evolutionary trait that's kind of kept them alive for a really long time. So impenetrable defense. When they think of an animal like a box turtle, an adult box turtle in Virginia does not have really any natural predators. They can be predated occasionally, but for the most part, they're just not worth the effort. They're too tough. They can close up that plastron, they can close up that little hinge and just hide. So that shell that is their body is also, their defense. So life history of a turtle. So we can start with just the basics of difference between male and female. Most turtles exhibit some kind of sexual dimorphism, and by sexual dimorphism means there's a difference between males and females physically. In wood turtles, these are emidyne turtles, so those are your pond turtles in Virginia. Males are going to be a little larger. They're going to have a concavity on their plastron, so they're going to have an indent on their stomach for mounting. They're going to have a larger tail for, they have a larger, further out cloacal vent, so they, reproduce more actively. They're also going to be just a bit wider. It actually is the opposite in some other turtle genuses. So let's think of diamondback terrapins. Complete opposite. Males are like size of maybe like a big apple. Females can be way larger. They have bigger jaws, and they're like crushing clams and shells. And males are kind of dinky in comparison. Almost all turtles have some version of enhanced longevity, really long lifespans. On the lower end of turtle longevity, you have 30, 40 years. That's the low end for a turtle lifespan. But then you have some turtles living well past their hundreds. You have some turtles living into their mid hundreds, almost 200, if not more. So they can live a really, really long time, and that's because it's super slow metabolism. They live slowly and they live long. They're also incredibly physically robust, and they're physically resilient too. So some of them are so strong. I mean, we've done some telemetry. We're tracking boxers. We're finding them and following them around, once a week, trying to figure out what their movement patterns are like. And sometimes they'll go under a tree root or like in a little hole, and you have to, do a status check to see if they're doing okay. So you have to go and try to pull them out. And, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds. I have to get leverage to pull out something the size of a grapefruit. That's not fair. But, it's just the way they live. They're very strong, and they also have that durable outer shell and really, really crazy strong immune systems. I have seen so many turtles missing full limbs, bitten off by like raccoons, or like they'll be born with a deformity, or they got bitten off when they were juvenile, and they're fine. They can heal up an entirely severed limb. It doesn't like come back and grow back. They're not that, lucky, but it can completely heal up, and they'll just be on their merry way. It doesn't seem like there's a lot that can really take them down. And they're just super cool because of that. I'm going to next slide. So more to the art of being a turtle. In terms of reproduction, most turtles, especially our lovely box turtles, don't have like a mating season. They don't really have like a mating ritual in the same way we do, or other turtles do. Sometimes you think of like painted turtles. Males have long fingernails, and they go up to females and do this little dance thingy, kind of like like little peacocks but underwater. really, really slimy because they're covered in algae. But box turtles, it's all opportunistic. It's just whenever they are out in the forest after they come out from winter or before they go under for winter, they bump into each other, and they are reproductively available. They'll mate. Turtles also don't really experience a lot of sexual senescence. But what I mean by that is, as they get older, most animals are less able, or it's more cost inefficient to breed. So, humans, we stop being able to reproduce in like our 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. Turtles can be reproducing into their 70s, in some cases, 80s. And oftentimes they're getting better at it as they get older. They have larger, more viable eggs, They're better at nesting. They know where to nest, when to nest, and what food is available around their nesting sites, which is really cool. And the clutch size is so variable amongst turtles. There are some that lay 1, 2, maybe 3 eggs if you're lucky. Then you have the sea turtles. You have like hawksbills that drop 200. It's like 200 ping pong balls carrying around in your stomach. And it's so crazy to even think about. There are some turtles that they'll take up like a third of their body cavity. It's so much egg. I don't want that much egg. No one does. Next slide. So some of you may be asking, what do we care about turtles? What do they do for us? What do they do for the world? I hope none of you are asking that, but some of you might be. They have a lot of ecology. So number one, they're a nutrient cycle. Let's think of these are riverine turtles up in the left-hand corner, or sometimes that same thing goes for large saltwater sea turtles. They're huge nutrient cyclers, taking big amounts of calcium and energy out of the ocean, putting it back on land. And that energy is allowing them to kind of rebuild sand dunes and rebuild like some of that vegetation on seashores. Or let's think of a snapping turtle. They lay a bunch of eggs too, but they're living in like a cattle pond. They're in there eating all that nutrients, eating all the food that's sinking into those little ponds, bringing it back out by laying eggs and redepositing it back in the landscape. So they're helping kind of offset those nutrient sinks. Ecosystem engineers, gopher tortoises. Man, are they cool. That is another tortoise that is way too strong for its own good. I don't think any of us, not even 2 people here, could probably pull a gopher tortoise out of its burrow unless we had a small truck with us. But they're a keystone species and ecosystem engineer in the southeastern United States. And they build these really cool, robust tunnels, and they're so tough, and they pack the sand up. It's like, like a little mine shaft. And some animals depend on them to be living in those mine shafts they make. Their own burrows house, some gopher tortoise, some snakes. They house some mammals, some toads. There are some, I believe it's moths and beetles that completely depend on them for their entire life cycle. If it wasn't for gopher tortoises, they wouldn't exist. And that's so strange and so cool. You think of this just kind of clomping around little old thing, and it's supporting the entire ecosystem. Seed and spore dispersal. I don't know if you guys have walked around and seen a box turtle or any other turtle eating blackberries, wineberries, red those little black raspberries. They're eating those, and then they're moving all around, and they're dispersing seeds across the landscape. Same thing goes with mushrooms. So they're just they're eating a lot of different species, putting those fungal spores all around, kind of really just moving the landscape in a real good way. They're also vital parts of food webs. So they're eating a lot of small little critters. They're also being eaten by big critters when they're little critters. So as soon as they're born, or as soon as they're laid as eggs, they're kind of like the chicken nuggets of the world or of the forest. It's a little sad to think about, but when some turtles lay 100 eggs, chicken nugget time. They are also just really important throughout their adult lives as scavengers as well. They will eat detritus. They will eat decomposing material, and again, going and defecating across the landscape and just moving that nutrient, everywhere is just really important. So next slide. Turtles are a story of resilience. So they have lived through not 1, but 2 mass extinction events. They have been around in some way, shape, or form for about 240 million years, and in a recognizable fashion for a little over 200 million. That is a really long time. They lived at the same time as dinosaurs. They were kicking it with T-Rex, maybe not T-Rex, but kicking it with other well-known dinosaurs. Some of the first turtle relatives were the Unodontosaurs, which were essentially like a big, tough lizard-looking animal. That was when the ribs started to fuse together, and then they started to dig underground, and that just kind of worked for them. So as the evolution went on, they were like, let's take a swim. And they realized that having big, strong shoulders and anchored that big, tough, plastron plate really worked, especially for swimming and for not getting bitten in half by anything beneath them. As time went on, we start to see what our, more recognizable turtles are. The only horrifying fact is back in the day, turtles used to have teeth. Can you imagine that? Turtles with teeth? I don't want to imagine. That said, probably was useful. But then you get all the way to today, past 2 mass extinction events, and they're still here. Largely the same body plan for that 200 million year period. Live a long time, be kind of round and have a nice tough shell, reproduce as long as you can, and that's just their main MO. Yeah, next slide. So the status of turtles today, while they have been historically really, really prevalent on the landscape, and they've just been around for over 2 million years, they are facing more threats in the modern era. There are 364 recognized modern species. About 350 of those are actively with us today, because that 364 does include a handful of extinct and probably extinct turtles. But of those 364, over 60% are threatened or already extinct. That is a lot of animals. That is more than most other taxa by a large amount. I mean, they're facing so many different threats all around the world: habitat loss, climate change. I won't go into it right now because we're going to go into it more. But a lot of these species that people used to see in the past 500 years are no longer here. 500 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of things. 500 years for like the turtles, it's nothing. They've been here for 200 million.
Mhm.
So that amount of species loss is astonishing. Next slide. I like to refer to the big four threats for turtles as the four horsemen of the turtle apocalypse. Top left, we have illegal trade. So turtles are one of the most illegally trafficked groups of turtles or animals on the planet. But I use a picture of box turtles in particular because box turtles are the most trafficked turtle and one of the most trafficked animals on the continent. I think they actually might be the most trafficked animal on our continent that isn't people. That's a turtle that everyone here has probably seen at some point. They're being taken off the landscape in huge amounts. And that's mainly for the illegal pet trade between America, parts of Europe, and Asia. They're status symbol. Some of them are really pretty, and they live a really long time. So people like them. They're desirable pets. Also pretty low maintenance. Relatively low maintenance. Top right is habitat fragmentation. I'm sure that anyone who's lived here for a while has noticed, just in Northern Virginia, how much growth there is, how much urban sprawl, how much every area is growing so fast. That's kind of the case everywhere on the East Coast, and the East Coast has a lot of turtle diversity. In Virginia alone, we have 25 different species of turtles, and our landscape's being cut up at such a rate that they can't exactly persist, especially if they have pretty niche habitat needs, or if they're like a box turtle and they're generalists, and they just get kind of shunted to these small areas. They're in essentially like a public park in the middle of like a green space in the middle of the city. They can't get out and they can't go and reproduce across the landscape, or that area is not getting enough nutrients. That habitat fragmentation has a lot of long-term impacts. Bottom right, climate change. As climate change starts to really impact turtles, a couple big things start to happen. One of them is going to be when nesting occurs. Colder temperatures make it harder for nests to survive. Same thing with really high temperatures. Same thing with a lot of rain. Those increased precipitation events can drown turtle eggs in some cases. It also goes for when they're trying to overwinter. So if it's really warm in the middle of, let's say February, turtles can sometimes pop up. And this happened to, Mark and I. Mark is another turtle scientist in fact, and I have both seen this a couple of times in the past few years, where we've seen animals that we know hop out during these warming events in the middle of winter, and then not going to go back under. And if they can't go back under, they die. So they're either coming up too early or going under way too late, and they get caught in a cold snap. Bottom left is actually, it's represented by a tractor, but it's machine-related mortality in general. So when I say machine-related mortality, I'm talking about cars, I'm talking about tractors, I'm talking about lawnmowers, anything that is going to run over a turtle. So many turtles during spring, every single year, are hit by cars. I'm sure everyone who lives out here, Rappahannock, Fauquier, Warren County, local, it's any spring day. You see, there's been a little bit of rain, you'll see painted turtles, snapping turtles, probably a lot of box turtles hit by cars. And a lot of the same events are actually happening in agricultural settings as well. They're being hit by mowing equipment, both by the tractor tires and by the actual blades themselves. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So many people have a really deep and serious connection with turtles just because number one, they're awesome. They're cute. I may be biased a little bit, but it's okay. They have such a wide geographic range. I mean, they're on pretty much every continent. They're not except for, Antarctica and the Arctic. It's a little bit cold for them. They wouldn't be able to do super well, but everywhere else. So many people have a personal connection, and they're really easy to recognize. They're in media. They're in all sorts of culture and lore. Ninja Turtles. Everyone knows what Ninja Turtles are. Turtles all the way down. Any of you listen to the Grateful Dead, Terrapin Alley, anything like that? And they represent a lot of really. They represent a great instrument for understanding human interaction with the environment and represent a great opportunity for engaging people with the natural world. Because so many people just don't, aside from maybe snapping turtles, don't really think turtles are evil or mean or scary. They love them. And I've always used them, especially when I was an educator for K through 12, as a way to get people interested in the natural world because they're so cool. Everyone can hold a box turtle, those bright little red eyes. I mean, they're so strange and sweet, especially getting people interested in reptiles. That's a whole nother story now. Next slide. So a bit about the Turtle Conservation Program. There's currently 6 staff members of our team. In the top left, we have Chris Belinsky. In the middle, we have myself, Maxwell Earle. Top right, we have our PI, Tom Ockery. Bottom left, we have Mark Kedner, who's actually in the back with us today. Hello, Mark. And then we have Quinn Bozek, and we have Aaron Doherty. And the 3 on the bottom are our interns and soon to be graduate students. So we got some really high-powered young scientists on our team. And Tom, our PI, has been running this program for about a little over 10 years. I think it's 12 or 13 years. And we focus mostly in the Northern Virginia region, just the left top corner of Virginia, a little bit in the southeastern part of Virginia by Virginia Beach or, northern North Carolina. But we're mostly an East Coast focused turtle conservation program, especially on threatened and endangered turtle species. Next slide. So the turtle of Virginia. So I mentioned we study like 3, maybe 4 turtles at any given time, but there's 25 different species in Virginia. 5 of those are sea turtles, so they don't count. They get all the love anyway. There's only 1 species that's non-native, and that's red-eared cider. That's from the Mississippi Drainage Basin. They've been introduced here. Some people consider them naturalized. Some people consider them invasive. That's above my pay grade. But we only have 8 present here in Rappahannock County. So it's painted turtles, spotted turtles, snapping turtles, musk turtles, 2 different river cooters, box turtles, and something else. The 8th one. So we don't have a huge amount of diversity in this exact county, but we still have a lot in Virginia. I mean, how many people here knew there were 25 different species of turtles in Virginia in the first place? You don't have. Good answer. But yeah, Virginia does represent a great, opportunity and great place for turtle conservation. Next slide. So, the whole point of the research we do is to inform conservation practices. So we do a lot of long-term population monitoring. That's mostly for wood turtles and now for box turtles. We do surveys annually. For wood turtles, it's been for the past 10-ish years, and we've been, having some turtle populations be monitored that we kind of got grandfathered into that are like 20 years of monitoring because these animals are so long-lived. There are turtles that were born and old well before I was born. I'm not quite 30 yet, but that makes me feel very young, and that's great. There are turtles that are worn completely smooth. They're on cameras that look like they're made of TI-89 calculators. It's terrible. Love it. We also do a lot of life history and survivorship studies. So we did that with juvenile wood turtles, and we're doing it with spotted turtles as well. So understanding their general life history in different ecosystems and how well they're surviving at different age classes and in different environments. Movement, habitat use and behavior. That's what we're currently doing with box turtles. We're trying to understand when, where, why, how they're moving on the landscape. And in our current case, we're understanding them in the context of working lands. So active hay, active crop, active cattle area. If they're on or adjacent to those areas, we want to know what they're doing and how we can kind of mitigate mortality. We're also part of larger groups that are doing genetic database and disease studies. So we are taking blood samples from turtles all around our field sites, sending them off to a big lab group, testing if there's any diseases present in our populations. And we're also helping to build a genetic database that can hopefully be used to relocate turtles back to where they originally were taken from if they were reconfiscated from a poaching event, which is really cool. Next slide. So this is just hitting on the same points. Our work is to inform conservation solutions to help at-risk turtle species. All of our research or all of our management recommendations, anything we do, anything we recommend, anything we peddle to people is all research-based. We don't, everything that we talk about has to have some kind of scientific framework and understanding before we talk about it, because we don't want to give anyone the wrong idea of how to conserve turtles, and we don't have that luxury. They don't reproduce fast enough to make mistakes like that. We also do our best to understand the acute causes for turtle decline, especially with our imperiled turtle species, which again, we have quite a few in Virginia, over 25. Next slide. Our focal species. Yes. Good face. We have 3 focal species in this immediate region, and that's box turtles in the top, the only one on top actually. Wood turtles, the cute little one in the bottom left, and spotted turtles in the bottom right. These are all 3 relatively closely related turtles. They're all in the Emodine subfamily. So these are really long-lived turtles. All of these turtles will live 70 plus years. We have records of all of them, and they're, I've seen wood turtles, I was mentioning how they're smooth and really old. They're at least 80 years old. Same thing with box turtles. That's a wild animal. They're in healthcare. They're not healthcare. They're in their 80 years old living their best life. Same thing with spotted turtles. And the great thing about spotted turtles and wood turtles is they're fairly closely related, but spotted turtles are the size of like an apple, and wood turtles are the size of like a football. Oh, such different lifestyles. So beautiful. Next slide, make a chance. So some of the techniques and technology we use to monitor turtles, we have a handful of really cool and new innovative ways to do that. This one is actually environmental DNA. And what environmental DNA is whenever an animal is in the wild and it's doing anything, just breathing, peeing, sitting there, shedding skin, whatever, it is shedding DNA actively into that environment. And what we do is we work with a company that has these cool big suction filter backpacks. We put a little, tiny, like 0.5 micron filter onto and filter water to find wood turtle eDNA in areas that we don't know their populations are super, high. And it's super cool because you can validate if there are animals you've never seen before by just taking water samples. Isn't that the weirdest thing ever? It's becoming a bit of a silver bullet for finding rare or cryptic species. And we're doing the same thing for spotted turtles, for tiger salamanders. A bunch of people are doing it for fish. And it doesn't have to just be water. It can be soil. Some people can do it with air. I don't know how that works. That's way beyond me, but it's super cool. So that's just us with our technology, just taking samples, and that's just goofing
Does that
off.
happen in real time, or do you have to send it up?
So the sample is taken in real time. The water is sucked up through the tube into like a little filter, and then you have to let it dry out, and then you can send it out, to do PCR testing, and that's like a week later. Sometimes it can take longer. Samples can be stored for 6 months, which is great. So you don't have to do anything immediately, which is the best part. This means we can wait till we have like funding or someone who is able to do that. Best thing in the world. Next slide. So this is our current bread and butter. This is Turtle Technology Telemetry Edition. So telemetry is a tracking technique for wildlife. It uses the same technology as like ham radios or walkie-talkies. You're essentially having a little tag. You can see on the left-hand side, that's a VHF tag. It's emitting a little signal that's being picked up by a receiver, and you can have a little bit of directionality. So you're walking out there with this big Yagi antenna like you used to have on top of the house. You're trying to figure out your TV situation, but instead we're using it to find turtles in the woods. And we do that so that we can swap these units on the right-hand side. These are actually GPS data loggers. They also have an accelerometer and a thermal logger, which is really cool. Accelerometer just tells us how fast and in what way a turtle is moving, and a thermal logger just tells the temperature of the turtle. But we have to track them at once a month to swap those tags. And we're using that technology to inform those management practices I was talking about earlier on working landscapes, so we can inform landowners and managers best practices for avoiding turtle mortality. Beautiful. So that feeds into our current project. This is the bulk of I've been working on for the past few years, and Mark's been working on for the past few years, and that's in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, focused almost exclusively on working lands, looking at box turtles in Fauquier, Rappahannock County, a little bit in Warren as well. These are the main areas we've been working in. You can see in Fauquier and Rappahannock County, it's like I think it's 39 and 46% working land respectively. So there are more working land than almost the bulk of Virginia. Virginia on average is about 30% working land. So these are definitely more farm-oriented counties, which is why we're working in them, which is really cool. Next slide. And the reason we're working on working lands is not just because we are interested in the turtles. They're super common throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed. They may have these really kind of isolated population strongholds. We've done some surveys on these populations at these working landscapes, and some of them are so robust. I mean, you'll find areas that it'll be like 1,000 acres, and we have found 500 plus turtles on some of those areas. And that's only after about 2 years, a year and a half of like intensive study. And really this year is the most intense we've actually done our surveys. And we keep finding new turtles. Our survey team will be at these sites where we know we have a bunch of turtles, and we're still bumping into new ones. It's absurd. And they're really, just a multifaceted, awesome thing, because they're a great way to engage with our local communities, engage with local landowners, empower them and inform them so they can make changes, and also protect a disappearing species across the landscape. And that's only possible because in the past few years, after working with other local NGOs and like Clifton and Virginia Working Landscapes, there's been so much support from like local science groups and local people and our local landowners to support this project and support us. It's just been incredibly generous, and can't thank y'all enough, but it's just amazing. Excellent. Beautiful. The main purpose and aims of this project that I'm talking about right now is assessing abundance and demography of turtles in the landscape. So understanding what habitat features on these landscapes influence our abundance and how abundant turtles are. We're trying to assess land use threats. So what land use practices may threaten turtles. So we're seeing how the turtles are moving throughout the landscape and correlating that with whatever management practices are happening on that land, because we know our landowners, which is awesome. And we're working with our landowners and other local community members to co-develop BMPs to help conserve these turtles. So it's not just, all of us is kind of all the scientists go and shut in a room and make the decisions ourselves and kind of just push it out. We actually are trying to talk with people and create kind of meet them halfway, because we can't ask people to just stop haying. We live in Rappahannock County. That's not possible. People have to hay. They have to be able to feed their cattle. They have to be able to run their cow. So it's all about mitigating, loss essentially. And the main thing that is tying this all together is creating a conservation community. So developing this community that cares about box turtles, strengthening it, because people really do make the world's difference. Next slide. This is a best management practice that we put out with Virginia Working Landscapes about a year ago. And it's encouraging landowners to raise their blade height whenever possible, 6 to 8 inches. That way they're passing over a box turtle land. So you think about a box turtle, it's like the size of my fist, so about like 4 inches. You're going at 6 inches, you're passing right over it. Even if you hit like a rock or something, you're probably gonna not hit it, which is great. Same thing with meadowlarks and other grassland birds. Being able to pass over them and not hitting the adults, not killing the adults, is key, because even if the nest isn't viable, you don't kill off the adult, you can reproduce and get back in the game, which is really important. And there's been some studies that have shown that if you have your blades raised to an adequate height, 6 to 8 inches, you can mitigate turtle mortality in fields by up to 50%. That is a huge win. I mean, 50% can mean a world of difference, especially for an animal that takes 30-ish years to replace itself in the ecosystem once. Next slide. So we're going to, a couple little quick videos. We can play them whenever you're ready. I'll explain them in, as they're going on. We actually did a test with a farmer out in Clark County, and we had a couple of model turtles, which were a grapefruit and an old turtle shell, that were put under a tractor that was pulling a blade that was 6 inches or 3 inches and then 6 inches. And you can see the difference in the next video here, but that was at 3 inches and you see it did destroy that turtle shell. And the next one, you can see that, yeah, that's the beginning. That turtle shell has been clipped. And when you raise it up to 6 inches, miraculously the turtle survives. And that was not me placing it after, I promise. I really do. That was real, which was even cooler. So, we just want to have a little example of showing what it is in real time and what it looks like to raise the blade, just to make a difference. Next slide. How can you help turtles? I assume at least some of you want to help them. Does anyone not? Oh, no, put your hand down. So, the best you can do is you can implement any turtle-friendly management practices at home. If you own land and you have any area you're mowing or haying, or you have a larger plot, or you're up against a forest, things, you can implement to, create nesting areas, or have areas that they can go and feed, or, mow at a different height. That's really awesome. If you can help turtles cross roadways, like I was saying during spring, I've had so many people in the past year, 2 years, like call, text, email, be like, "Hey Max, I moved a turtle off the road today." I'm like, yes. I love to hear it every single time because, if they are on the road, they are so vulnerable. They are incredibly tough. They have no natural predators for the most part. I'm talking about boxers in particular. But they cannot take a car strike for the most part. If they do get struck by a car, usually it's, there's a decent chance it'll kill them. But we also do have really, really great local partners. And that's the next point there, is supporting local turtle research and rehabilitation centers. So, supporting any of the local research, like our work or the Clifton Institute's work, always amazing. We love that. But also supporting rehabilitation centers like Blue Ridge Wildlife Center. They have taken so many turtles from me that I have had to go and take off the land or off the road, give them, and then they'll do their best to rehab. And a lot of times it actually works, which is really, really cool. Going backwards for 2 seconds. To help a turtle cross the road, number one, be safe. If there's cars coming, please don't do it. I'd rather you live than, try to be a hero for a turtle. Save the next one. If it's crossing a direction, like if it's going one way, help it cross the direction it's already wanting to go. They have a really strong sense of direction. If you turn them the wrong way, they're going to just go back the next way. They're stubborn too. That's why I like them. And the last thing is to spread the good word of turtles. Talk about how much you love turtles, if you really do. They need all the support they can get, and people need to be thinking about them. And when you think about them, when someone gets a new car, your friend gets like a buggy, and then you see a buggy everywhere. The same thing happens with turtles. You have like an observation bias. You think about turtles, you are seeing turtles. You gotta get a turtle on the brain. Place the brain, put a turtle in there. I'd like to acknowledge all of our fantastic partners. We have, Dr. Tom Ockery, we have Ava Johnson, Bert Harris, Joe Fauquier, Chris Polinsky, Justin Proctor. I'm gonna name everybody. Rick McDonough, Mark Kettner, right over there. Love that guy. Aaron Darty, Grace Bailey, Quinn Bozek, Dick Rains, and Nick Lapham, all for supporting and helping out on this project. It's been a blast, and I look forward to continuing it with all of you. Yeah, next slide. Anyone have any questions?
How do you find the turtles when you're out researching them, and then do you mark?
Actually, repeat the question so the viewers can hear them too.
Absolutely. So the question is, how do we find the turtles when we're out surveying, and do we mark them? We find them, for the most part, just visually encountering them. So we're walking around, we have these big 250-acre plots that we're walking around in, just kind of aimlessly. We're going to areas we kind of it feels turtly. So, and that there is totally a meaning to that too. If you get into an area that's really rocky, it's kind of an outcrop, that doesn't feel very turtly. It feels snaky, which is cool, but that's a lot of work. But we get down to an area that's like lower elevation. There's a lot of stilt grass, which may be invasive, but they love it. That feels turtly, and that's where we find it. Going out there for about 3 to 4 hours per survey. finding them, and then we're marking. We're putting a small notch in the shell. You can't really see it, but on this little scoop, there's a little triangle that we mark into, and that's how we, have an identification system. It's called the modified Kegel notching system, and we can mark anything from 1 to 9,999. So we have a lot of notches we can do.
So you don't attach an antenna on all the turtles you find?
Not all of them, no. We have a certain number. We only have a certain number of tracking units, and we only have a certain number we want to track at any given site. We don't want to track like 50 at one site. It's more like we have marked it's like 20, 20, 5, 5, something like that, roughly. Yeah, okay, Mark's giving the sure, whatever. Shrug, so that'll work. It's distributing the tags across different lands. But yeah, yes.
Have you seen differences in turtle populations between areas where there's more invasive plants like stiltgrass and autumn olives versus areas that are more native vegetation?
Again, repeat the question.
Yeah. So have I seen any differences between areas with a host of invasive plants or non-native plants versus more native plant species? And the answer is, unfortunately, I think that a lot of the turtles really like the invasive. They really love grass.
There's more of them.
They really love stilt grass. It's a great place for them. It's a great little like thermal refuge, and it's damp, and there's a lot of slugs and bugs, and I see them eat autumn olive berries and flowers, and they love wineberry. I'm like, you little demons. All of my botanist friends hate me. They do really well in native ecosystems, especially if you go, if you're closer to the coastal plains. I feel like that's when I find that native ecosystems are better for them. But as soon as we get into like the Piedmont, it's fair game. Whatever's good and damp, the turtle don't care. Yes.
When did you start like really loving turtles?
What was the question? So the question was, when did I really start loving turtles? I probably started loving turtles when I wonder if my mom's on this call right now. Mom, if you're on this call, how old was I? Like 7? I got my first turtle. Don't judge me. I hear judgment. I was probably 7, maybe 7 years old, and I had my first pet turtle, and that's when I started playing Pokemon a lot, and I found out the turtle Pokemon, and that was like almost exclusively what I used for a while. So it's been a long time. It's been over 20 years. Yes.
Are there any programs underway to create culverts or some means of turtles being able to cross roads without getting smashed by cars?
So the question was, are there any programs or anything happening to create turtle-safe culverts under roads? And the answer is currently no. But I've had a couple of colleagues spitball that idea with me, and there's been a couple other colleagues that have looked into this where turtles won't cross under most culverts because and so a lot of other reptiles won't, especially if it's daytime, because they're used to having sun, and then all of a sudden if they go under when they eat something that is completely pitch black and damp and dinky, they're like, oh, danger. But that's not all the time, but it's sometimes. So some people have been experimenting with essentially just lighting up the tunnels, and apparently that works somewhat well. So we don't know. We don't have a solution just yet, but we are currently thinking of it.
So like a clear plastic or something like that might be enough.
Or if it's even under the road, just put some LED strips in there, make it like a little turtle raid, let it go through. As long as it works, I don't care.
Question from the Zoom audience. A couple of questions about snapping turtles. Well, what's the best way to hold them? You had a picture of somebody holding one. I see one crossing the road. What about snapping?
I don't have one with me, but I'll use a binder to mimic it. So imagine this is a snapping turtle. This is the head up here. They can reach their neck about 50% of their body length, so they can really clap back if you grab from the side. But what you want to do is they have like a lip, so like a lip under their shell. So the back side, you'll see like their little stubby little legs sticking out here, tail right here. Put your hand underneath, and you'll have a pretty solid grip. You can pick it up, and sometimes it'll lean forward, and that's okay because it's heavy. You just pick it up and move it. But for snapping turtles, honestly, sometimes I just stop. I'll just put on my hazards and wait. Like I'll get a whole bunch of horns blaring at me, maybe have a couple unhappy campers behind me, but I wait 3 minutes and the turtle's good. And it means I don't have to touch it. They also smell kind of stinky, so I'd recommend not always touching.
Where do box turtles like to build their nest and what time of the year? So in my area where I live, where do I need to be careful not to bother them?
Yeah. So the area or the question was what area or what, I guess, where do turtles like to build their nest, box turtles in particular, and what time of year? So box turtle nesting season starts at the end of May, goes into June, a little bit to July, and they're looking for kind of sun-exposed areas with gravel or mulch, sometimes dirt. It's usually south-facing, like a south-facing slope. On a hill, underneath, like if there's like a blackberry bush, it's got some exposed soil in it. Or if you have like, rose bushes that have good dense mulch in it, love that stuff. So garden beds, if you have big garden beds anywhere near like forest edges, they also are an edge loving species. They like to be on kind of that cusp between forest and open area. They like to just kind of shift in between. So if there's an area that seems like that, that's pretty good. They also will sometimes nest in compost piles, which makes me unhappy because, I have to go and turn my compost piles. I don't want to have them in there, but, just something to consider. Yeah.
And how long until the egg hatch?
It's about, I think it's 70 days on average, roughly. It could be a little bit longer, sometimes a bit shorter, but 70 is your average.
7 or 7?
70. Yeah, so 2 months ish. Yeah. Yeah.
How long does it take for them? I've never seen a little turtle.
Yeah. Very cryptic.
Really take to grow up.
So the question is, how long do turtles, box turtles take to grow up? They really depends on the geography or the latitude you're at, to be honest. And just the ecosystem, because in Virginia, I would say by 10, they're a full-fledged adult. Physically, that's usually when they start to hit sexual maturity as well. You go further south into like Georgia, South Carolina, even southern North Carolina, it can be 5 years, 6 years.
5 years.
Yeah, I mean their active seasons can be twice as long. Because in Virginia, let's say out in Rappahannock County, what is cold? It's below. We get below freezing temperatures from November maybe, or like mid-December to like early March. It's like maybe 3 months. They don't have that nearly as long in Georgia, parts of Georgia at least, northern Florida, whatnot. Yeah.
Yes. Do they carry any bacteria or anything? Can you pick them up? Do you need to wash your hands?
So with any aquatic, okay, the question is, do turtles harbor any bacteria on their shells, or do they have anything you should watch out for? With pond turtles, so like anything that's aquatic, so snapping turtles, painted turtles, anything that's wet, I would always wash your hands just because they're in dinky little ponds. There's all sorts of bacteria that can have, just like any other animal in a pond. Like you wouldn't want to look at a fish that you catch out of a pond, same thing as anything else. Box turtles in particular, poison ivy. They don't know, almost no other animal reacts to poison ivy quite as bad as we do. So if you pick up a box turtle and it was just rolling around an edge habitat, like by a forest edge, there's a decent chance that it's got poison ivy. I've picked up a few this year during my surveys that have had ticks on them. Not trying to eat them, but then just crawling on them because there's seed ticks everywhere this time of year. I'm gonna pick them up and then they're on me. So sometimes occasional seed ticks, but mostly poison ivy, and then just general bacteria and germs.
We have time for one, possibly 2 more questions.
How far does a box turtle roam from home?
Oh, that's a question. How far do box turtles like to roam from home? That is a hugely variable question. It depends on it's between individuals, and there's a difference between sexes. So females will have a larger home range on average in some cases because they have to go nest, and they will go really far to nest. We've had turtles we've had to track over a straight like kilometer, which our survey areas are not straight lengths, so we have to meander up hills and stuff to go and find them. So their homes can be anywhere 10 acres to 60 more. It all depends. I apologize for that being an inadequate answer, but we're still figuring that out. Mark's working on some home range estimates right now that will be giving us a good idea of what their home ranges are on Oregon landscapes this year.
If you pick up a post today, there's a wonderful story about a box turtle that you should read if you have a chance.
Absolutely.
I forwarded it.
Yeah.
It's got a pawpaw, which is a native, by the way. It's a native.
This is also sent me a picture of a box turtle eating pawpaw and Daniela cried. Yes.
Yes.
Controlled burns, how do they affect, the box turtle, I mean turtles, and does timing matter?
Timing absolutely does matter. So the question is about prescribed burns and their effects on turtles and box turtles in particular. They do impact them, especially if it's overwintering. So what box turtles do during winter is they go into the substrates of, the dirt, leaf litter, just enough to cover themselves up, maybe a little bit more deeper than that. Sometimes they'll even have a little bit of keratin exposed, but the leaf litter on top of them is kind of like an insulator, especially when snow falls on top, keeps them warm, keeps them from freezing. They're just trying to get below the frost line so they don't die. Prescribed burns nuke the top layer and take off. Number one, it can basically burn them or boil them, which is not good for most animals. They can survive it. I have plenty of turtles, and Mark has also seen plenty of turtles because he worked in coastal North Carolina, been burned and still been fine. Winter prescribed burns are about the worst you can do in forests. In fields, it's the opposite. It's cold out, turtles are not in fields. Prescribed burn there. They will do their best to get away from fires, especially if they're in a fire common habitat. So again, like coastal plains or longleaf pine ecosystems, they're gonna do their best to get away from them, and they'll go into like wetlands, or they'll just burrow, or they'll try to run. Sometimes I've seen them try to go through if it's like a thin fire line, like if it's a tight fire line. I've seen wood turtles start to do it because they're larger and faster, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, burning can be impactful.
Final question.
Yes.
Especially this year, I've been finding a lot of turtles up in the mountain areas that are turned upside down. I was too late, of course, but
Oh, they're okay. Are they fully intact?
yeah, oh yeah, and they haven't been, no chew marks, no anything, all the.
And when you say it's too late, is it that you think they're dead, or are they actually dead?
No, they've left.
Okay. Well, so the question is, comment is about finding turtles that have been turned upside down and are, thus dead. So when male turtles get into combat, they flip each other over, and their main way of getting back over is they have a really long neck, a really strong neck, so they'll just flip themselves over using that. But if you're finding intact turtles that are dead, like fully dead, probably something is flipped it over and is trying to eat if the turtle died some other way, and it's probably trying to get eaten from that. Why else I don't know. It could be disease, it could be anything else, but if it's flipped over and there's no other marks, maybe you just got really unlucky fighting another male.
Oh, great, and I have to read this because this sounds authentic.
Okay.
From Bruce.
That's my dad.
This is your mom, and you were about 3 or 4 when you started to have a real interest in turtles. When you got cream puff.
Cheese puff.
Cheese puff. I'm sorry,
Dad.
Yeah, cheese puff.
They actually came.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you, Max.